Picture a frosty December day in 1194. The Sicilian town of Jesi hums with a strange mix of gossip and anticipation. There in the main square stands a simple tent, flaps drawn. Inside, Queen Constance of Sicily labors in childbirth. Whispers ripple through the assembled crowd. Constance is 40, practically ancient for a medieval mother. Surely she can't really be giving birth naturally. Yet, after agonizing hours of screams, she steps out, hair matted, a newborn nursing at her breast. Onlookers gawp as Constance parades around, determined to prove the child is hers, no switching or subterfuge. It's a moment that will rewrite royal destinies. This baby is Frederick, destined to become one of Europe's most fascinating figures, King of Sicily, King of Germany, Holy Roman Emperor, and the man a future pope will brand the predecessor to the Antichrist. You might call him the ultimate medieval wildcard. Many, centuries later, will call him the Unholy Roman Emperor. Fast forward to Frederick's toddler years. His father, Emperor Henry VI, has already died. His mother, Constance, soon follows, leaving the young king in the custody of Pope Innocent III. Yes, the Pope is quite literally Frederick's guardian, a scenario that would sound comedic if it weren't so politically combustible. On paper, this arrangement solves problems for everyone, especially Innocent. For decades, the papacy dreaded the possibility of one ruler holding both Sicily and the Holy Roman Empire. That would sandwich the Pope's own territories in central Italy like a mozzarella slice between two formidable powers. With Henry VI gone and baby Frederick apparently stripped of any rightful claim to the empire, Innocent sees a golden chance. Raise this boy into a pious ally who'll keep Sicily separate from German lands, no more overshadowing papal states or encirclement by one mega-kingdom. Medieval Sicily, though, is no fairy tale nursery. It's a riotous melting pot of Normans, Germans, Greeks, Jews, Arabs, you name it, all swirling together under a monarchy that's been up for grabs since Henry's death. As young Frederick grows, the kingdom endures a parade of regents, many of whom act more like warlords than nurturing protectors. The child king, left half feral, scampers through Palermo's winding streets, forging an early bond with the city's mosaic of cultures. It's rumored you might catch him sprinting after exotic birds or eavesdropping on merchants from North Africa. That curiosity fuels his love for falconry, languages, and eventually science. But the Pope's plan, molding Frederick into a docile puppet, suffers every time the kid escapes the palace or shrugs off a tutor's attempt to tame his spirit. By the time he's a teenager, Frederick is an odd mix of scruffy independence and sharp intellect. Imagine a coffee shop barista who also aces astrophysics on weekends, awkward at small talk but a whiz with deeper knowledge. His new wife, the much older Constance of Aragon, arrives to find a husband who's charming in multiple languages but lacks the refined table manners of most royals. She scolds him for devouring chicken legs with both hands, but soon recognizes beneath that rough veneer lies a cunning political mind. He's also just discovered that if you wave a papal excommunication in front of rebellious barons, it's like brandishing a flamethrower at them. They scatter in terror or else kneel in submission. Young Frederick uses precisely that approach to subdue Sicily's bickering nobles, determined to reassert a centralized monarchy. The barons, unimpressed, grumble that he's just a teenager who got lucky in his alliances. Yet Frederick proves unstoppable, systematically forcing each magnate to cough up deeds to their lands, reclaiming property for the crown. For a while, it's as if the Pope's dream is coming true. A loyal king in Sicily who owes everything to Innocent. Then the Holy Roman Empire, up north in Germany, descends into chaos. Two rival claimants, Philip of Swabia, Frederick's uncle, and Otto, some lesser cousin from another branch, teeter on the brink of civil war. The Pope, ironically, had endorsed Otto, hoping to keep the empire's focus away from Italy. But Otto soon shows his true colors, threatening the papal states and even meddling with Frederick's barons. Meanwhile, an unexpected turn. Philip gets murdered, and the empire's fractious nobility suddenly eyes Frederick. Remember that teenager with the unstoppable excommunication card? Now he's in line to be crowned King of Germany as well. Alarm bells ring at the papal court. Innocent, after all these years of carefully grooming Frederick not to unify Sicily and Germany, sees the dreadful scenario reemerge. Yet Innocent also hates Otto now. So he flips, persuading German nobles to name Frederick their king. With Otto excommunicated, Frederick waltzes over the Alps, hungry to secure a new throne. Talk about a wild teenage summer. Frederick storms into southern Germany practically uninvited. At one city, the gates remain locked, loyal to Otto, until Frederick reads the bull of excommunication, turning the local garrison's loyalty in a heartbeat. They open wide, letting him in. Otto shows up a few hours later, expecting a grand meal, only to find Frederick inside devouring his welcome feast. It's comedic misfortune that underscores just how close-run the entire endeavor is. Within months, Frederick is crowned King of Germany. Before long, Otto's support crumbles, leaving Frederick as the unchallenged heir to the Holy Roman Empire. Innocent, presumably sweating behind papal walls, demands Frederick keep his promise. Separate Sicily from the empire. But Frederick's grin says it all. He's not about to let that prized kingdom slip away. He placates the Pope for now, promising to hand Sicily's day-to-day governance to his infant son. Secretly, though, he's thinking, "Sicily and I are soulmates, Your Holiness." Good luck changing that. In the next few years, Frederick grows from a scrappy youth to a refined monarch, although refined might be a strong word. He's still that falcon-obsessed, multi-lingual wanderer at heart, only now with armies and the double monarchy at his command. He's about to become Holy Roman Emperor as well, a triple crown that turns him into the Pope's worst nightmare, that dreaded mega-king unifying southern Italy and the German territories. Suppose the papacy's earlier plan was akin to building a fence around your tomato plants to keep out a neighbor's goat. By 1215, that goat is wearing rocket boots, bounding over fences like a medieval Marvel hero. Frederick courts the German princes with promises of autonomy, ensuring they vote him emperor. But his heart lies in the warm, diverse tapestry of Sicily, a land he shapes into a haven of scholarly endeavor, administrative reform, and architectural brilliance. Innocent eventually dies, replaced by new popes. Each inherits the same unstoppable headache, Frederick. He's enthroned as Holy Roman Emperor, merges de facto power in Sicily, and starts ignoring papal threats. His fascination with knowledge leads him to sponsor translations of Arabic works, compile a treatise on falconry that still impresses modern scientists, and dabble in bizarre experiments. Some allege he tested linguistic development on children raised in silence to observe the natural language of humanity. The Pope might have chuckled if Frederick were just a weird academic, but he's also a cunning commander, unstoppable at forging alliances with rebellious Italian city-states, outmaneuvering papal armies, and eventually going on crusade in the Holy Land without papal blessing. That's like crashing your ex's wedding uninvited and waltzing out with half the guests cheering for you. Frederick storms Jerusalem, negotiates its peaceful handover from a Muslim sultan, crowns himself King of Jerusalem, and all the while remains excommunicated. The popes call him arrogant, heretical, even demonic. But Frederick shrugs. He cracks some witty line about how half the church has zero sense of humor and returns to Italy in triumph. By now, many dub him the Stupor Mundi, wonder of the world, just as many brand him the devil incarnate. This epic interplay of power and personality highlights why historians label Frederick II the Unholy Roman Emperor. He stands at the intersection of faith and reason, bigotry and cultural acceptance, Christian orthodoxy and near-pagan curiosity. He converses with scholars across Europe and the Islamic world, baffles critics with religiously tolerant laws, and arcs from the Pope's chosen son to the papacy's biggest headache. 4 times excommunicated, yet unstoppable, he's a medieval rebel with a crown. Eventually, age and decades of warfare chip away at Frederick's vigor. His final years see renewed rebellions, papal condemnation, and an uneasy sense that his grand experiment in bridging cultures may collapse once he's gone. Indeed, after his death, the Hohenstaufen line, his dynasty, crumbles. Popes and other monarchs scramble to ensure no one man ever again straddles Sicily and the empire. The papacy breathes a sigh of relief, yet Frederick's legend remains: the polyglot king, the falconer scientist, the excommunicated crusader who recaptured Jerusalem. A man so pious in some respects that he'd debate theology with Islamic scholars, so heretical in others that the Pope labeled him the Antichrist's prelude. Call him a medieval enigma, a fusion of unstoppable ambition and brilliant intellect. Maybe call him the best argument for checking your crown guardianship fine print before you name the Pope as babysitter. That is Frederick II, the king born in a tent in Sicily, who soared from the Pope's pet to the Church's ultimate foe. The tale might sound comedic at times, but it shaped half of Europe's future. If you asked Frederick about it, perhaps he'd grin, hawk perched on his arm, and say something like, "Well, I do like my suitcase, especially when it's full of unexpected wonders." Because in his world, from the moment of his improbable birth to his final confrontation with the papacy, everything was about turning improbable events into unstoppable reality. That's how an infant rumored to be fake blossomed into the unholy emperor who terrorized popes, reigned from the Alps to Palermo, and left behind a legacy that historians still struggle to pin down: holy or unholy, savage or enlightened, a product of his time or centuries ahead of it. The truth, like Frederick's mind, may forever remain gloriously complicated,